Hi, I am LaToya J.R. Borders, your host of the Happily Ever After Summit, where you're going to be learning how to co-create a marriage filled with love, intimacy, and adventure. Today, we have a great expert who is super. She is a therapist and a relationship coach. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Hi, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me. And my name is Meriana Dinkova, and I'm a marriage and family therapist and a relationship coach. And I have my private practice in which I see the individual clients and couples in San Francisco and Oakland and over Skype all over the world. And since 2010, I have been also doing monthly workshops on relationships and intimacy. Called Sex Magic, in which I have different experts on all kinds of areas from communication to Tantra, from BDSM and kink to energetic intimacy techniques. It's been a really interesting lab. And yeah, I have been a geek on the forces that make relationships and intimacy and passion between people and what makes it spark and what makes it last. So I'm really glad to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like a plethora of just expertise. So we're going to just dive right in and ask our first question.
Yeah.
The first question is, what does relationship readiness mean to you?
I have been learning a lot about the conscious and unconscious factors around relationship readiness for years, and lately especially for all kinds of different factors. And we have so many conscious templates about what we want. We want a relationship, we want commitment, we want a happy marriage, and we want that person who's going to be our best friend and rock our world forever. And often in the background, we have also all kinds of unconscious templates about marriage, about long term is one thing, committed is another thing, relationship. One that already like has a lot of weight for a lot of people, and then if you add marriage on top of it, it creates often a whole that different template. So in a lot of my workshops, I even do this exercise in which I make people finish the sentence: marriage is. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? And at least half of the room often has something: confinement, where you lose yourself, where you have to give up who you are, opportunity for betrayal, whatever it is.
All the bad stuff.
Yeah, so we often, the relationship readiness can be something very different on the surface than deep down. And things to look at on the surface, of course, is, does the person have even enough space in their life to have a relationship? A lot of we have different ways in which we can sabotage being able to be ready and able to have a relationship, even if we think we are. One of it is being a workaholic. Another thing is depending how you time manage projects and whatever else you have going on in your life. Another thing is ability, because that's also where some of the unconscious platforms can start. It's like also what is relationship to you, and how do you do, especially when you start a relationship and then things start going off, when you have your first fights, when it is the first week that both of you are not in love and something is happening, something is in the air. Like, do you, in relationship readiness is when people have can create the kind of bond and have the kind of attitude of, how are we going to deal with this together to make it work, versus how is this a sign that it's not going to work? Because there is also often, you tend to go into, oh, is that's why it's not going to work, and I'm going to start looking for signs of how it's not going to work. Or are you putting your energy into how to make it work? It's a little bit also two different attitudes, but they make a difference. And examining some of the forces back there around marriage and around long-term committed relationships, because they're so often not conscious and then just pop up, especially when you get married and suddenly you lose your sex drive. Or there was that joke of, what is the one food that makes a woman's libido go down by half? Wedding cake.
I've never heard that joke before. Wow.
And that's so often connected with what it means to be a wife versus a girlfriend. And it's easy and possible to clean them up, but for a lot of people, they can be unconscious and can mess with being ready for a relationship if unconsciously you think losing yourself and then feeling good about marriage.
I love that you say that, the unconscious part of it, because a lot of the times it's almost as if we don't really know exactly what we want, what we need, what we expect, except for surface stuff. And then once arguments and things start happening, like, oh, I really thought it was this. If you really wanted a relationship, then why do you think in the back, once I get in a relationship, I'm going to lose myself? Who would want that?
And
So
I
it's
think we
kind of
don't
like it's
think it
fighting.
consciously. That's the thing. Unless there is, and that's where therapy. I have a crush on my job. Because there is.
That is the best thing, to have a crush on your job. Is perfect. So my next question is, how do couples keep the love strong in their marriage? That's a really big question that I always get. Like, how do I stay in love with my partner?
Yeah, and that is an interesting one because that's the thing, that between the force of being falling in love, but then especially staying in love.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is that for all of you that are familiar with mating in captivity. Like she talks about the two concepts about that are generally at war. The part of, in order to be in love and stay in love, the part of love is about, and I love actually relating to those concepts. It's about like the familiar, the mutual, the I know you, we are transparent, we share everything. You're predictable, you're familiar, you're that safe place I crawl into that ideally doesn't change too much, so we can stay safe. And then it's the other force about individuality and about desire, and that's what the in love is about. I love you and I want you still. And I'm hot for you and I have this thing. But the desire is this about other cluster of things, which is about the unfamiliar, the risky, the surprising, the new, the left field, the thing to be conquered, right? Like the having versus wanting, what the way she relates to it. And it is really like, especially also depends what concepts come around marriage, because sometimes if we have to do everything together, we should be not taking space and so on. And love needs space. Because yes, a lot of people are most attracted to the partner when they're away and when they're just coming back. And I see with a lot of my couples who are struggling around desire issue, there is like when they have even a few days apart, they come back and it's back. But as for a lot of people, they have concepts of love, but why we should be wanting to do everything together. So there
That
is
makes a lot of
also,
sense.
so that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is when you don't do enough of the fun things together, when you have so delegated, you do your own and I do my own, and I do my super fun things that makes me grow over here. You do yours. And then we come home to just crash together. But then you're the safe, comfortable place, but I don't feel we're growing in a way also. And it's really important to have these places where you do your own thing that is not about us. It's about me, so you can also bring back something new, and they're not like, honey, how was your day, same old every day.
So I guess
But
my
also to
follow-up,
balance it, we're growing together.
I guess my follow-up question to that would be, how do you kind of, and I really don't believe in like balance, because something is always going to get a little bit more, but how do you have that where I have my own individual space, but I'm still having that connective time that I require with my partner?
Yeah, because both of them are important for this love in love thing. Because if you mush each other into the big weed, then there is not enough bzzz. But also depending on schedules, and then if kids come and so on, like taking time for yourself where you can self-nourish and also self-build. Because we're also supposedly most attracted to our partner when they're doing their thing, shining their light, doing the thing they're good on, and people are looking at them going, wow. And we're like, yeah, that's my man.
Yes, completely.
And a lot of people and there is this thing where if you don't become the self that you like, whether in your relationship, but also in your life, then it's hard to love, because you can love somebody only as much as you love who you're being when you're with them. And often that a lot of that is about the partnership, and a lot of that is, do you love who you're being in the rest of your life? Because if you don't love that, and that's what self-care and self-love comes in, it's hard to show up with your partner as fully lovable to yourself. They can love you to bits.
That is very true. I didn't know that until after I got married. I got married really young, and I found that out later on, that I had to learn how to love me unconditionally in order to even be like that, good partner, great partner for him. And it really was important. It really was like a turning point when I figured that out. So I'm so glad that you spoke to that. What strategies have you suggested that have successfully helped create passion in marriages? Which I know you have a ton of.
Totally. And even to passion, actually, because in order to be passionate, it takes this thing enough between feeling safe and feeling challenged. The challenge is actually always like a good one to create passion, but it's also depending, because at some point with marriage in many years, we have conquered each other. So if there is any areas where you could continue experimenting things, because routine is one of the biggest passion killers. Like complete predictability is a huge passion killer. Being overly, like feeling that with you, it's familiar, but I'm not going to go anywhere else from here. And even if you're curious about each other's fantasies or about each other's turnouts and so on, it's not even about let's do them all, but being with somebody where you feel the possibilities that we can go places versus that's it. And that's it. For the rest of your life.
Oh goodness!
But then when marriage comes, then for the rest of your life comes, and then unless that's it, is something potentially growing that is dense, and it versus like that box that you just walked into, it's also then passion goes down, and passion can often go down or just because of criticism. Like so many couples, and I know that that's kind of more about love, but how much love, or like how much information we give each other versus criticism is huge. And like how much do we treat each other as, and in passion too, do I treat you as somebody who's got what it takes to turn me on and I just have to pinpoint, or is it like you're having nothing and our sex life has been stuck, why aren't you doing this and this? You know what I mean? Like, am I looking at my partner as somebody who's got what it takes and wants to give it to me, and I just have to help? And they just slipped maybe, but they still have what it takes, and they want to give it to me, versus somebody who doesn't have what it takes, and or they don't want to give it to me. I'm gonna punish it for them and point out how they don't have what it takes, almost in the hallway approach as something. And the passion is huge. Do I complain about something not working, or do I say how sexy and great that would be to have more of that? That would be so good between us.
You just opened up a whole nother part of my mind for some reason. I never thought it from that point of like, because I have some male clients, and they're always like, we just not having a lot of sex. And I'm telling her, I want to do this and I want to do that. But mostly he's saying like, you're not doing, or we're not doing this. And it becomes like,
and I'm telling you what I want to do, and I'm putting it on you to do it, and you don't do it. And then he's not inviting her to do it. He's not setting it up to do it and inviting her in the sexy way is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not hearing her kicking and screaming against it. And he knows what it is easier than she will. But this is like when you set up, because there is also, if there is this thing about marriages where my sexual needs get frustrated, then you would see the other person as your jail keeper who's not letting you have what you want, versus as your partner in growing the sexy garden that's gonna like at least be curious and collaborate. And
be curious and collaborate.
They don't start if you tell them what your fantasy is. You start and you invite them in a sexy way, and you set it up so they win at the beginning, so that they win more, and then you're like, oh, you're good at this, and then you help them win a little bit more, and then you're good at this. I love when you do this and this with me, and when you come up with these things, and then they become that partner who's coming up with things. But if you put them down criticizing for not being that, instead of helping them and seducing them into that, huge difference.
That language is completely different. It even feels different when you hear it. It feels completely different. Okay, so my last and final question is, what are some things that couples should talk about to have that long-lasting marriage?
Some of it are also just knowing each other's ideas. I mean, there are associations with long-term relationships and marriage. So it's hard to even know. I mean, because there is, again, the conscious and the unconscious sets. Like the things that are really important to know for a long-lasting marriage are each other's languages of love. And with languages of love, I mean many more than the 5 that are mentioned in the book. Because we have, and even, are you going to have an interview on the 5, or should I list them?
Oh, you can list them, yes.
Okay.
Because I love them, but there are more. I do believe there are more.
Yeah, because it's for long-lasting marriage is really important to know how you express love and how your partner expresses love. And there are different ways in which, because some of it is for love, but some of it looks like protection. It can look really ugly in the dark side, but it is about love. So, I mean, the 5 obvious languages of love is that some people express love through gifts, and they're going to buy you things and leave you things and flowers and so on, and that's their way of I love you.
Right.
Other people's express love, or usually often we receive love in the same way. We express it through quality time and through a lot of eye contact and speaking about feelings in your day and your hopes and dreams and so on. Other people feel most love, but it's like little words of affection and affirmation, like I love you, you mean the world to me, cute name, oh my god, my heart opens when I see you. All these little, to them, those little words and those little notes with the words that are like way more precious than whatever expensive thing the gift language of love is trying to say.
Yeah.
And then for other one is sex and physical touch, which is, again, there's not just the sex, but the being held, the being touched, but also feeling desired. And that's where a lot of people in long-term marriages can confuse the being loved and affection with desire, because I hear so often then years into, it's like, I get plenty of affection, we're cuddling all the time, I just don't feel desired.
Yeah, I want to feel that.
There's a lot of techniques around that, but also, so again, back to languages of love. There was, I'm sure I missed one. It was acts of service, which is doing things for each other. Like, I'll fix your car, I'll do these things, and so on. And it's important to know, like, how, because often we can feel so unloved if we're screaming our language of love and we're not getting love back in the same language of love, or in the language of love that works for us, while the partner is paying the rent, fixing the car, doing the things.
They're showing the way they can. That's what it is.
Not saying it in the cutesy words, but often it's our also responsibility to know ours and to know theirs. Because also for some people, they're like very unpredictable languages of love. Like, if you love me, you're not going to bring up problems. Which is like the opposite of the language of love.
Right.
In order to love each other, we should talk about problems and solve them together. Right. We should be transparent if somebody bugs you and bugs us, and then we should like team up and solve it, and that creates intimacy and hope. But the other one is like, you're making drama, so you don't love me. Because I love you, I put up with your shit. So without not bringing it up, because that's not loving you in that language of love. And then when 2 of those go together, they're both screaming, I love you. One wants to process, the other one wants to shut down.
Nobody can hear.
But both are feeling unloved, isolated, I rejected, and so on. So there's many more languages of love that I wouldn't speak about right now than the 5 we talked about.
I love it that you addressed it, though.
And there are also some things about also the version of commitment around monogamy, long-term monogamy, how open are we, how we gonna be dealing with different of our things around. I mean, I work with a lot of couples around opening up or not opening up, so I know that and that can be so many stages of how long we've been married versus we're just getting together. And I've seen that for some of them, it's actually even the thing that saves the marriage again, because after 10 years, I remember one couple we were like, should we separate or should we open up? and they opened up profit again, because it created this thing of the new, the unpredictable, the no competition, but that's my partner. I know, but they did it in the right way. They actually rekindled the passion instead of breaking them up. So there is also and I'm not saying people should open up to bring the new or the chase. There are many other ways to do it, but just as that example. And then, because it is a specific dance of how safe can I make you versus how not unsafe, but how new and unpredictable and myself I can be in those unfamiliar ways to you. That is the dance of the love and the heart. And it's many ways to do it right and do it wrong, so to say, or ways that kind of trigger much more partners' insecurities and protection mechanisms versus this hot curiosity, desire.
I love it that it's unique to each couple. Like what my relationship looks like.
Custom made.
Yours is not. It can look completely different. So if you could leave an audience with something today, what would you tell them? What is something that you want the audience to leave knowing about?
it is important to know that seducing each other, because keeping that feeling of being in love, of being together, of being hot for each other, of being proud to be with each other, being excited about each other, and especially with long-term relationship, when we go into boom, 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 that's like boxes. It's seduction. This is one of the great quotes I heard recently, that the process of seduction starts at the beginning of the last orgasm.
Ooh.
And it is something that it's like a process that we can hold each other in during the day, during when you're gone, during when you're living something somewhere. And it's in knowing how to engage the playful partner, a new partner, the one that can flirt and can be naughty with you and can be all sexy and experimentative, as well as the nurturing, that I can't wait to grow old with you. You're the safest thing I've ever felt, and you're the home of my soul. But then also back to the sexy kitten, and then back to the different ways. It's a whole art form of how to be able to engage those parts in our partner, in each other's presence, as well as when we're gone, when we're away from each other. And that's also something that a lot of people in long-term relationship underestimate, the power of what you can hold while you're away from each other during the day. Not just like the stay in touch, which is great, yay for texting to stay in touch, but you can push all these buttons.
I love it. I love that you're staying connected in so many different ways, and you're pulling so much out of yourself, and therefore pulling the same things out of your partner. I love that.
Yeah. And and there is different needs. It's especially important to know how to combine those buttons, depends on who you are and who you're dating. Because a lot of people, if you mostly reinforce them for being the self-secure, loved thing, then it creates a feeling of not being desired. Or if you often, so depending also like on what mark and model you're together with and you're building a love with, and what mark and model you are, and there's different button combinations for the perfect mental foreplay that can make your thing prosper and survive and sizzle over the years.
That sounds like super juicy. Just the way that you say it sounds super juicy.
Thank you.
I know that you have a gift that you want to give our audience. Could you tell them about that?
Yeah, I would love, I can invite the audience to check out my free video. It will be a free gift if you subscribe to at the link below, which is over half an hour of mental foreplay, tricks and tips. It's divided. The video itself is written for a male audience, but it applies wonderfully in both directions. It is not something specific for one gender or another. And although the tricks I describe are like how to seduce the mind and the body and the emotion, because they also need different tricks and different keys, how to make somebody appreciated for their mind versus for their emotional thing versus for their body sexiness, or what emotion, what fantasies you want to trigger and what buttons you want to push. And although the video is described if you want to have a hookup, or if you want to have a lover, or if you want to have a long-term relationship, the important thing to know is in the long-lasting long-term relationship, you have to be a master in all three of them. So even when you're listening to the first part that is about hookup, that's almost the most important one on long-term relationships, because that's when we often most forget how to go, I can't wait to do this and this to you. I know, because we're so used to treat each other as this loved place, the provider, the mom, the whatever it is. So yeah, feel free to click on the link below and check out my free gift.
I'm going to be clicking the link below. You can never have too many tricks in your bag. I am definitely going to be clicking the link below. You guys should do it as well.
And that's one of your most important art pieces, like your romantic relationships, and knowing how to create a beautiful one and how to have different strokes for different emotions and different things that feel good is important. And for people who want to work with me, feel free to reach out to me. And my information is on my website. And if you're curious to inquire about a session, we can schedule 10 minutes brief phone consultation, 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm happy to speak and see how we can work together.
Oh, you are giving so much right now. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Much love, you guys, and have a great day.